got here is a 4-door Ford long bed 4x4 Super Duty F250. Now, this is a big truck. It's a one-owner truck. It's diesel. Okay, it's got the Power Stroke diesel in it, V8, and the owner loves his truck. Now, approximately 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, he brought his truck over here, and this is typical for these type of vehicles. All the paint on the hood was peeling, the roof paint was peeling off, and then of course tops of the doors and areas were peeling. So he asked me to go ahead and paint the truck. I told him, well, let's just go ahead and fix what we need to fix and be done with it. So he agreed to that, and we did that. And then about a month and a half after I painted the truck, the car got stolen. These vehicles, I found out, are very easy to break into. All you need is a screwdriver, and then you kind of pry in here and you jiggle it around and the lock comes loose. And so it's not really anti-theft. Now, he didn't have an alarm on this either. Being the age of the truck it is, I don't know. But whoever stole it, I believe they were either a heroin addict, a crack addict. He said they were illegals, and that they also had prostitutes in the back of the truck. They were living in the truck. The truck was gone for approximately a month. They retrieved the truck, arrested the party that stole the truck, and when he got the truck back at the dealership, of course he had full coverage insurance. When he got the truck back to the dealership, there was blood all over the carpet, dirty needles, just filthy, scummy, dirty everything. They smoked in the vehicle. They completely trashed the whole vehicle out. So he went ahead and turned it into his insurance company. Now, when he turned it into his insurance company, the insurance company basically told him, we're not totaling out your vehicle. The mileage isn't that high. The vehicle's still in really good shape, and we're going to go ahead and fix everything that you find wrong with it. So they started out with the interior. Now, Big Rod, the guy that owns the truck, he came over to my shop and wanted me to go look at the vehicle and kind of give him a list, but they went ahead and replaced both door panels. They completely recovered the seats with brand new leather. I believe that they steam clean and pressure washed the carpet. I don't think they replaced that. They bought him some brand new floor mats, and I think they either repaired the dash or replaced part of the dash. The center console was completely gone. I know that they replaced that. And then, of course, in the back of the vehicle was the same way. So he got all that taken care of. And then we came down to the situation of, what are we going to do about the body with all the scratches on it, all the little dents? You can see where I primed it. It had dents all over it. The hood, I don't know what happened over here, but this was a freshly painted hood, and they gouged the paint right there. There were scratches and dents all the way down this side of the vehicle. The tailgate was dented and mangled. So what are we going to do? And I told them, well, if we paint every panel that they're paying to paint, we're going to end up painting the whole car. So my suggestion is we go ahead and paint the whole thing, everything but the roof, because the roof's the only thing that is left that actually looks half-assed decent. So I went ahead and did the minor body work to it, and me and Minnie, the body shop girl, completely block sanded this down, 181st dry, then 320, and we are going to go ahead and paint the whole truck, less the roof, of course, on this vehicle, and then we'll replace the stickers and be done with it. But this situation here is called Epoxy Primer scenario. This, what you're looking at, is what Epoxy Primer is specifically designed for. And when I say that, when you take a car like this and you're going to paint over the original paint or old paint, you have to put a coat of Epoxy Primer on it. And the reason is you want to seal it. You want to shock that old paint. You don't want to have this bleed back through or dull out on you or blister or possibly react with your new paint. So it's very important that we go ahead and spray a whole coat of Epoxy Primer on this vehicle. So after we wash the vehicle off, you can see Minnie the body shop girl is taping the vehicle off. Now she started on this at around 9 o'clock this morning, taping this big old truck off, and it is now 7 o'clock at night. She took 2 breaks, but you can kind of see just by looking at the paint, some of this is original paint, some of it's not. So by putting the epoxy primer on the whole vehicle, what's going to happen, it'll seal all that old paint in, and we won't have any causes of blister, bleed back, fading, any type of situation at all. And when you're painting a truck like this or a car, that's the situation. Now something else I want to show you right here is you can see that's the old sticker. We're going to be putting new stickers on the vehicle, but we are not going to pull the old stickers off. Now the old stickers are permanently on there, and then once we paint over those, that'll give us an outline where the new stickers go. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's done all the time. I've been doing that for 30 years that I've been in this shop and never ever had a callback. So let's let Minnie the body shop girl finish that off. She's got to tape the bed off. She's almost done with the plastic. It doesn't look like the plastic's long enough.
Oh, don't say that.
It's not going to come all the way to the back here.
Don't say that.
Well, it doesn't look like it. About 8 feet too short. So she's going to go ahead and get that taped off and get her done. And then we're going to come in tomorrow and start painting this thing to wrap it up. Now the epoxy primer that I am going to use, let me go ahead and get that out, is a brand that is made by PPG, and it is called Shopline. Now I want everybody to pay attention to this. This says epoxy primer. Epoxy primer, it doesn't say anything about sealer, but what this is a sealer. All right, people get this so confused that it is ultimately ridiculous. If you look right here, this says high build primer. So it's got the word primer here and a primer here. But the difference is that makes this a sealer is the hardener slash activator. So when you add a hardener, okay, do you see the situation? It says hardener, all right? This one here says activator. Do you see the difference? On a high build primer, you have an activator. On an epoxy sealer, you use a hardener. Has anybody ever used epoxy, 2-part epoxy glue? And if you look right here in my hand, this is basically what I'm talking about. This is a 2-part epoxy glue. You got the glue and then you got the hardener. And when you mix those two together, it activates itself and becomes a permanent bond, which is water resistant, temperament when dry, transparent when dry. Okay, this is a transparent glue. I use it all the time. Very, very good stuff. But it is a epoxy glue. So when we're looking at our epoxy primer, think of the aspect of it being an epoxy glue because it uses a hardener. And when you see the word hardener in there, it's pretty much unbearable to block sand, whether it's wet or dry, because it will gum up immediately and cause deep scratches. It will cause very, very serious problems within the finish of your vehicle. And the only way to get them out is you'll have to go ahead and put 2 to 3 coats of this on it and then block sand it down and then re-epoxy primer it. Now the word primer that they're using here means that it is to be put over a surface that needs to be sealed up and primed. Now there are companies out there that claim you can use their epoxy primer and it's sandable, but it's not a true 100% epoxy primer. And when I say that, if you read the directions on this can thoroughly, if you go down and you read all the directions and you specifically check it out, you can actually use this as a sealer, a sandable sealer, by adding 10 to 20% reducer. Now what the reducer does for our high build primer is it makes it flow out to a creation of saying, I don't have no orange peel, my surface is silky smooth, and I'm ready for paint. So you can use this as a sealer type primer, but it is not a 100% true epoxy sealer. So tomorrow morning, bright and early, about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, my friend Pete will be out here cleaning this paint booth, getting it ready to go ahead and apply one full wet coat of epoxy sealer. It's very important to remember the difference between epoxy primer / sealer and 2K high build primer. You're gonna see and hear all kinds of stories. I don't know how many videos I've made on this, but I'm telling you now, epoxy sealer, true 100% epoxy primer is what? What is it?
It is a sealer.
What does that mean?
That means you don't sand it.
That's right.
It goes on super smooth and it seals everything before you put the paint on. You don't want to sand it. Put it on before you.
You don't touch it. Once you get done putting the sealer on, what do?
You wait like 20 or 30 minutes.
And bam, put the paint right on it.
Yes. Listen to Pete. He knows what he's talking about, people.
So
He's been doing this a long time.
we will proceed tomorrow morning by applying our epoxy sealer. And depending on the weather, I might add 10% reducer. And what that's going to do, that's going to let it dry to a sheen finish. You can add a little bit of reducer to the, hold on a minute, what's
Help
up?
me out. I cut the plastic too short and I'm going to put paper on here. Just help me out. Pull the paper.
I can't reach it, I'm filthy sweaty, and I don't want to get
Don't
fisheye in the
touch the
paint
car.
tomorrow.
Don't touch the car. Good. Okay, right up. No, pay attention. Go closer to the end. Pull it tight. All right, that's good. I got it.
Okay, you sure you don't want to just get some
Shut up.
plastic?
I got it.
Okay, I don't want to touch the car, I'm
Don't
filthy.
touch the car.
I got fiberglass dust all over me.
Don't touch the car.
Okay. Alright, we got the car completely wiped down. Paint booth is completely cleaned out. Now, when I say wiped down, what we did is we took some wax and grease remover and completely wiped the whole vehicle down. Then we went back with a dry wipe all. Now, this is an automotive paint and body used wipe all, not a wipe all brand rag that you would purchase in O'Reilly's or AutoZone. We went and completely tack-freed the surfaces on the vehicle down. And now what I'm doing, I am stirring up my epoxy primer. And here's a good tech tip. If you go to your local paint and body shop supply stores, sometimes they will sell you these lids. These lids come off, this is off a mixing machine, a mixing bank machine. And this is kind of an old school style from possibly the 90s. The newer ones are made out of plastic, but they still work. And it really makes a good storage unit or storage container if you have a product that you use all the time, such as your epoxy primer. And just to recap, I'm going to show everybody the vehicle. It's a Ford F-250 4x4 truck. You can see how big it is. But another thing you can see is you can see the surface is properly prepped. Very, very important to prep your surface properly. We sanded this down to 320 dry, And then I came back with a Scotch-Brite and fine-tuned everything up and made the surface paint ready. Now, when you first get your epoxy sealer and you mix it, it's going to feel like it's a medium compound of liquid. And when I say that, on your high build primer, that is super, super thick. And it goes on super thick. Your epoxy sealer slash primer, whatever you want to call it, it is a medium base, meaning that it's not as thick, not as heavy as our 2K primer. So when you're doing a small piece, you can get away with spraying it with just the hardener and the sealer itself. But what we're going to do, and I want to get my hardener out. Remember the difference between hardener and activator, very important. If you have a product that says activator, it's a sandable type of product. If you have a product that says hardener, it's a non-sandable product. So we'll go ahead and put our hardener in, and then what I'm going to do to make this even flow out more silky, more smooth, we don't want no orange peel, I'm going to take my reducer and I'm going to add 10 to 15%. That's all it takes. That's it. What you just saw will considerably thin this out to make it flow out nice and smooth, nice and silky, and paint ready. So when you get to this stage of painting your vehicle, and we'll go ahead and say repaint your vehicle because that's what we're doing, all your sanding's done. Look at this epoxy primer that I am going to spray on this vehicle as basically your first coat of paint. Now, the only time that we will go in there and possibly sand anything out is if we get a run. And the way that we will do that, I'm going to go ahead and explain it while I'm doing this, I'm not going to show you in this video, is that we will take a paint stick like you see in my hand, we will break it off to a small piece. I will get some 600 wet sandpaper, wrap it around that stick, and I will gently and lightly finesse the run out of the epoxy primer. Meaning, I will not forcefully sand it out because that will ruin your epoxy job and you'll have to go back and redo it. But by using a stick, a flat hard surface like this stick right here, what you're doing is you're letting the paper concentrate on the run only. That means that it will only hit the run part of the primer. If you try to do it with a soft block or possibly your hand, it's running over the run and it's sanding everything around it that the sandpaper is touching. So if and when you get a run in your epoxy primer, you want to contain it by using a small piece of that paint stick and wrapping it with 600 wet sandpaper. And one more thing, you want to use minimal water. That means you don't want the water splashing on your epoxy primer. You don't want to have to come back and wipe it all off. Minimal, and be very quick and accurate as you do it. So we got our epoxy primer, and on this big job I might have to mix up some more, I don't know, but we'll see. So we're going to take our spray gun, whatever type of spray gun you're using. I actually like to use the siphon spray guns more than the HVLPs. That's what I was raised on, that's what I learned on. I'm a professional with these guns and I can spray accurately with them. A lot of people look at that spray gun and say that's a joke. Well, let me tell you, The joke really is you complaining and bitching because that's what I use. So, as you can see, the most important tool in paint and body industry to get a nice clean job is this right here. This that I am holding in my hand, this piece of paper, is the #1 item that will give you the cleanest paint job that you will ever receive. Now, you see that's a nice clean piece of paper. I'm going to show you. This is brand new epoxy primer, never used. It's brand new out of the can. Another thing about your epoxy primer, you really have to stir it up thoroughly. And the reason I say that is it's hard to get the liquids and the solids to mix properly, especially in cold weather. So always remember that you have to mix it 100% thoroughly. Don't just stir it for a few seconds and say it's done. So we're going to take the other end of our paint stick and we're going to make sure that that's stirred up 100% thoroughly. And what I've done is I mixed up 1 full quart. Alright, now we can go into the paint booth and then we're going to go ahead and apply our epoxy primer to the vehicle. We're going to go in there and look at that in just a second. I want to go ahead and get my gun cleaned out. One thing I want to give you a tech tip about is when you use these cups, throw them in the trash. They're not worth saving. Even if you clean them out, I mean, you know, I guess you could, but in reality, you're basically wasting precious material because you got to use cleaning solvents that you have to purchase to clean those out when those things only cost, you know, pennies on pennies. And usually, once again, your paint and body shop supply store usually gives these to you for free. So remember that. But we're going to go ahead and clean this out. I want to show you, I use that full quart of epoxy primer on that truck. And that's actually not a lot. For being as big as the truck it is, I thought I was going to have to mix up some more. Now, I want to go ahead and tell you the settings that I used on my gun. I went ahead and had my pattern opened up all the way. This is our pattern on this particular gun. This is our spray pattern. I turned it in a half turn to a full turn. And on this here, I have it screwed out approximately from all the way in. I have it screwed out. This would be our volume. Okay, so this is our pattern. This is our volume, just like any other spray gun. And I had the volume pretty much fully open because that's the way I spray, and then I kind of control it with my hand. I don't really, what do we call, set that to where I'm pulling in all the time. I'm actually controlling the volume with my hand. But if you aren't able and willing to do that, you would turn that out 4 full turns, and then that would be your setting. But that's just some tech tips I threw in. Let me go clean this out. I'll be right back, and we're gonna walk in there and see how silky smooth our epoxy primer came out.
Now's the time to go ahead and subscribe, click the bell, and quit choking your chicken, people. It's crazy. It's a gobble, gobble, gobble situation. Choking that chicken ain't going to let you do it right. To do it right, you need to do it right by subscribing, clicking the bell for notifications, and helping my friend Pete out. Stop choking your chicken and subscribe now. Ooh.
All right, we got our gun cleaned out, ready to apply the clear. What I'm going to do on the paint, I'm going to go ahead and use my Seda 500 or Seda 5000, whatever it is, HVLP gun to apply the paint because I have minimal paint. If I had ample paint that I know I would have enough to do the whole thing, because I got to put 3 full wet coats of paint on that thing, and then of course it's a very heavy metallic paint. And when you have a heavy pearl / metallic paint, you want to eliminate your streaks. So by using the HVLP at a lower pressure, of course it'd be set at the specs that it will take, and opening a bigger pattern on that particular gun, it's going to give us the opportunity not to have any fogging or streaking in our paint. But then once again, I'll go back and I will use my siphon gun, my Binks number 7, to apply the clear. So if you take a look at that surface, I want you to notice how silky smooth. And there's still places on the vehicle that are drying, but look how it has laid down. There's no orange peel. There's no imperfections. We didn't get any runs. And it really, really came out nice. This is the base. This is what you're looking at. This is the base for a flawless paint job if you want to do it properly, is to epoxy prime over the old paint. Now if you primer the whole vehicle, if you take 2K primer and you block it down and then prime the whole vehicle, this is unnecessary because the 2K primer, the sandal primer, works as your sealer, and the only thing that you would have to seal, put spot seal on it, is where you busted through or you had imperfections. But when you're doing a paint job like this, painting over the original paint or some old paint, it's necessary to put a nice, clean, sheen coat of epoxy primer on it. You can see by doing this, the finish is going to come out flawless. There won't be no orange peel. There won't be any imperfections in it, and it should lay down really nice. Now, I will go ahead and mention one more time, I did add approximately 15% reducer to this because it is a very big truck, and when you're spraying a large item such as this, to get it to lay down properly, you have to thin your material out, and the only thing to do that with is reducer. Urethane reducer, not lacquer thinner, not enamel reducer, not acetone, but urethane reducer. Always remember, the products that we're using today are urethane-based products. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete. We're gonna come right back after I get this thing painted, and we'll see you in a split second on here, but in reality, it's gonna be about 5 or 6 hours from now.